conference, I was coming up with themes for things. That was just like probably one of the hardest parts. And I was talking to kids, and they kept saying you can, and then they kept saying no, that was really bad for grandma. And then my husband told me that was really bad. They went up with you and me. But I was thinking about when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, and something that had stuck out to me this year, or just was like a big part of my life. I really got stuck in that word you, the word you. And growing up, I think you all knew that I grew up on the dairy farm with my parents and my dad. And did you know that you can be an entire sentence just one word? Yeah, anyone know that? Because your dad can say that 40 acres down, and if you can hear it, you're supposed to know exactly where you're supposed to be, how long ago you should have been there, what you are supposed to be doing, and you know that because he said you. That's all you got. Anyone else been in that position before? That's not you, and you know. Okay, so my dad was a dairy farmer, like I said, and he had 5 girls and then my brother. So us girls we were in the barn when we were young, fairly young. And there was this year, and my mom and I were talking about it the other day. I said, "Do you remember the year of the heifers?" She's like, "Oh, yes." So we were to Wisconsin. Deer hunting, while it is big here, is nothing compared to deer hunting in Wisconsin. In deer hunting in Wisconsin, you are going to have hundreds of people coming up from Chicago, maybe thousands, up north. They're all going to be wearing orange, and most of them have not fired a gun in probably at least a year. Okay? So your heifers are outside. The only way you have a hope of nobody dying down here, another heifer's dying, is if you get them in the barn before hunting season starts. You have to. I mean, there just is no other option. Well, this year, these heifers, they were just, we had done everything. I can remember Dad had us chase them. We ran into the swamp. We had the feeder wagons out. We took the milk cows, which were the gentlest things, and ran them over there. We took them and tried to take them all in the barn. No, this was like the worst group of heifers I can remember in my entire life. And we're now up to the day before hunting season. The day before. I mean, our time is running out. And my dad gets this plan, we are going to get them. And that's just how this is going to be. They are going in today. So there is my mom, there's me, there's Jesse. I was trying to remember if Amy was out there. I don't remember. She might have only been 8, so maybe not. There was my grandpa who was supposed to open the gate quickly and shut the gate even faster. Okay? There's my dad. We're going, we've got him around the loop, because why would the cows go straight? That would just be simple. We've got the heifers, we're turning, we're around the loop. We're aiming for the door. Everything is going how it is supposed to. And then all of a sudden, it was not. And I know they look different up here. I mean, everyone I've seen does it on a 4-wheeler or on a horse. We didn't have that. We did it by your feet and you ran your heart out. And my dad would yell, "You," and we would scatter. One of us ran to the right, one of us ran to the left. Let me tell you, the Olympics, we could probably qualify games down. 12, 13, because you're going to cover 40 acres and you're going to do it in a minute, and that's that. And my dad said, "Get in front of those heifers." Let me tell you, 2-year-old heifers, they can book it. They are going. They were going fast. And my dad said, "Get in front of him." He's going around one direction. And mom's like, "I can't." And I'm going in the direction. I was the oldest. And I slid out of the fence. I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to make it," because I didn't have time to go over. I slid out. And they did not stop. They just kind of like, and you're just standing there going, no. It's one of those moments you've just totally messed up. There's nothing you're going to do to say or anything else because your dad is going to be mad. And that's just it. Maybe not necessarily 100% at you, but mad is there. Okay? So you're doing this and you're going through it. I remember getting all done. And my grandparents owned, they were driving in the farm. My grandparents owned the only piece of ground in Lincoln County that was high altitude and the lowest piece of ground in Lincoln County that was low altitude. And I think they were only 10 feet apart. I think there really was much in between. I mean, this was horrible. And, of course, the hunters, they went through the next fence, and the next fence down. So now we've got all this. And finally, my dad says, oh, fine, we'll just shoot the things that you've done. It was just at that point. And well, he did get them in the next morning by some miracle. I don't know because I was not part of it because these kids were, we were done and mom was done and I was probably even more of that. But, you know, when he said you, it was an entire story. We knew exactly what we were supposed to do. He'd been training us for this since we were probably big enough to walk. We knew where we were supposed to be. We just didn't quite. The cows didn't know the plan. Just we did. That's how that goes. So when I was thinking about this word you, I was going through the Bible and I was thinking about something and I told Jim, I said, there's that high. You're running, your adrenaline is going, you're almost unstoppable. But then comes that low. And oh my goodness, you can really stand up. Does anyone else ever have that position in your life where it's like, okay, all in one breath? And when I was stopping and I was thinking about this and I was talking to Jim about this, and I said, that's a life. Elijah, that's who I'm thinking about. And we've talked about the story of Elijah. I'm just going to go really quick through it. I'm not going to read a whole lot of it until we get to a certain point. But Elijah had been following God's instructions. He'd walked into the king's throne room unannounced. He had just faced death. Nobody was in the king's room. It's kind of like opening your dad's bag of chocolate. You just don't do these things. It's not there. You cannot do it. He goes, he tells the king, no rain's going to fall until they return. I'm pretty sure the king did not completely believe him at that point, but he did very soon after. And all of a sudden the king turns around, he's gone, he's on the run, he's hiding. God says, go, and I'll hide, and I'll send the birds to feed you. I'm going to stop right there for a second. I give Elijah credit. If birds were bringing me my food, I would not have food. Okay, I'm just going to be just in love with you. I've seen birds, we have chickens, and whatever they touch, I don't really want. So I give him a lot of credit right there on the spot to go here. Amazing. But then the Rick dries up, and then he has to go on this hike, and he gets to the widow, and he says, hey, can you give me something to eat? And she's like, oh no. And I can just imagine at this point, he's thinking, God, you just sent me here. Now what? That's what I would be doing. God, you sent me here, and this is not working how you said that this is going to be. So he talks to the widow, and gets there to making some food. Life is going good. They're staying there. Then her son gets really sick. And then we learn that he takes her son into the bedroom and talks about another awesome experience with God. He gets to see this kid basically come back to life. An experience that heard was amazing. Then all of a sudden God says, okay, time for rain, go back to the king. It's like saying, okay, let's go see if you can die now and go back and do it again. I'm just thinking Elijah, he's got so much going for him. He's got so much more faith than I ever would have. But, I'm sitting there thinking, well, he did it. He did it. That's good. I would not honestly say I would have done the same thing, but he did. He goes back. And then he walks into the biggest showdown of his life. Now, how many of you grew up with dads and grandpas who liked John Wayne movies? There was always that major showdown. The streets clear, they come walking out of the saloon, or the bank, or the jail, and it's quiet, and you just hear that music building up, and he walks in, you walk in. This is what I confer to Elijah to do. He goes and he finds the king's servant, and the king's servant's like, what do you mean? Well, you're trying to kill him? You send me, go find the king, you go find the king. So they go back, they get the king, and they're going to go down, and he says, get everyone together, and we'll just end this once and for all. Let's just get this over with. So they all get up on the mountain, and there's sacrifices, and the prophets of Baal, they're out there, and they're basically, I was telling my mom, I was sitting here talking about this, I said, I imagine a room full of toddlers and one piece of cake. They're screaming, it's loud, You know, and then this is the part that my dad particularly, he was just this, oh, come on, you're doing very good. You can do this, you know. So they're doing that, and it's the biggest trip of his life. And you know, he prays. God sends the fire. They capture all these portraits. There's this mass execution on the spot, which I mean, that's got to be a little dramatic too. And then he starts praying for the rain. If you remember right, he prayed 12 times for the rain. And then he decides to go help the king get back to safety, which was really funny with him. And he runs in front of the chariot and he gets the king to safety. And you know, he sits down and everything is going to go. I mean, Elijah is the man of the hour. Everything is going his way. He is like on top of it. Well, then, you know, this goes on and he starts talking and Ahab tells Jezebel what happens because, you know, I'm not exactly sure why, but somewhere in there, and it says, everyone come, she didn't think it was necessary. You know, she did it her way. She did not think it was necessary. So for some reason, she missed the whole show. So Elijah's going on, she misses the show, and long and short of it, she gets mad because how could he? Why dare he? You know, I'm in charge of them. What was he thinking? As some of her prophets died. So she gets mad, throws this major fit, writes one letter to Elijah, which this is my brain working. If she knew where he was and she was going to kill him anyway, why did she send a letter? Anyone else have these questions run through their mind? I cannot be the only one who stops and thinks about these things, okay? Anyway, she sends one letter from a great big thing, and before you know it, Elijah is on the run. I mean, he's out of there, goodbye, see you later on. God has just kept Elijah safe for over 3 years. He has proven he's with Elijah. He's talked to Elijah there. I mean, first name basis, you know, with God. They have got this. And now Elijah is on it. And we're not talking some little just, oh, I'm going to go through the cross. Oh, no, let's go on 41-day hike. Anyone else hiked for 41 days? I did it with Jim for 41 minutes. Just being honest here, you know, let's just go on a 41-day hike. So he's in the middle of nowhere. You know, when I moved out here, my sisters always told me I was in the middle of nowhere. They still think I'm in the middle of nowhere. My one sister says this is the land of eternal life. You know, nowhere. And so Elijah gets there. He just lays down and hides in a cave. He is done. He's tired. He just lays down and he hides in a cave. He's ready to have this good old cry, big old pity. He's ready. He's on it. So then we get in, and I'm going to turn to 1 Kings. I'm heading to chapter 19. If you have your Bible, you're more than welcome to open it and read. And it says, and there he went into a cave and spent the night in that place. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? So he said, I've been very zealous to the Lord, God of hosts. For the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. I thought it was very interesting. You know, God could have really yelled at Elijah at this point. I mean, if it was my kid who'd been hiding under the bed or something, I could guarantee you some yelling would have definitely occurred when I got to you and found you. But he's like, what are you doing here, Elijah? Now, I also believe, just by reading this, Elijah also knew he was running. He knew that this is not probably where God would have sent him right off the bat. I know that we as people, as Christians, we do the same thing. We know what is expected of us. We know what we're supposed to be. We know what we're supposed to do. But we start running the other way. Someone will say something to us particularly, something we did not want to hear, and we'll just stop coming to church. Why would we do that? Or we start skipping Bible study, and next thing you know, we've stopped reading our Bible. We quit doing things or going places where we may hear things we know we need to hear, and we know we should be doing, but we don't. And to be honest, if I was looking out at this room right now, I'm pretty sure there are some people who are not here for that exact reason. They don't want to hear what they know they already know. And what they know is right. So what comes next? When we're reading, then Elijah starts saying in verse 20 says, I've been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, the children of Israel. I have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone they seek to take my life. Next comes the excuses. So first we stop doing the things we know we're not supposed, we know we should be doing, and then we start making the excuses for them. My grandma, Tiffany, loved Southern gospel music, and I mean loved. That was her thing, even up to the end, right at the end, her and I would sit there, and I don't know if anyone else has had this experience, but you just listen to old Gaither videos with grandma, and she is the happiest person alive. Okay? But we have a song way back in the 70s, way back. We're not even anyway, the song in the 70s, and they called it excuses. And the excuses, you make them every day. It's things about like nobody can get a church because one thing that's cold and takes everybody to blow up kids' nose. Things like that. God doesn't need us to tell him why we're not doing it. Have you ever realized that? God doesn't need us to do that. I don't know, any of you who have little kids, when you say something and then they have to explain to you why they did something. Anybody go through that? You have to explain why you did not obey. I remember one time I was sent out to bale hay with my sister, and the first thing that happened is this needle broke. And we knew there were spare ones on there. So we were out there, we are going to fix this, we're not going to go get dad. Because that would have been way too easy. But it's the first time he's ever let us do this. Last thing you want to do is go get dad. And we're going on it, we're fixing it, and we are so proud of ourselves. We got the broken part out, we got the fixed part out. Now came the worst thing of our life. Did you know you have to thread it? Yeah, well, maybe we should have got dad because evidently for this exact thing, you thread it before you put the piece back on. Okay? So dad comes out there and he's like, what are you doing? And I started explaining. And he's like, I don't need you to tell me that. Just tell me why this isn't right. And I'm like making all these excuses. But God is the same way. He doesn't need us to tell him why we're not doing something. He already knows it. He knows it. Now, this is where the story, I think, the good parts come in. God comes to be with Elijah. Number one, can you imagine God coming to be that close with you personally? I am looking forward to the day when I get to heaven and I get to be that close. I think that's going to be the most amazing thing ever. But I want to first come with the wind. And if anyone lives in Wyoming, you know we've had wind this year. I'm not talking little wind. We have had wind. Okay? Anybody? My sister-in-law lives in Chicago, and she always says, oh, it's the windy city. I told him, I said, we've got a beat by 50 miles an hour. I mean, let's be honest here. Then it sends the rocks coming down the mountain. Now, I'll be honest, where I grew up, it was flat and swamp, so mountain was really a foreign concept to me, but I learned it really quick when we got out of this mountain thing. And I'm like, the rocks don't come tumbling down. Yeah, Mr. Hess, he taught me that. He called Jim one day. He's like, can you have Jim come out? I need him to help me get this rock off my car. He was driving between here and my car, and literally the rock's going in the car. I'm like, I did not know that actually really happened. I'm a whole new learning experience. But I'm just not going to see these things. The rocks tumbling down the mountain. It's kind of a terrifying thought. I'm not talking one rock. I'm talking like, here they all go. And then the earthquakes come. Now, I've only been in a tremor of an earthquake once in my life. And I don't really need to do it yet. But, that tremor of those earthquakes, it just scares me because there's nothing you can do. You were just sitting there shaking. You could feel it. I mean, I was on the inside. I was being but you can just feel it. It is the most powerful force. It is really, really powerful. And then comes the fire. Now, the fire's coming in. You know what I realized with fire? They come in, they clean everything up. They just take everything that was in the way. Particularly, I've seen a lot of wildfires in this area, but Jim, my husband, helped me with this experience before we even got there. So it was maple syrup season, which in Wisconsin is a really big thing. Okay? It was our last year. We had sold the cows. We were going to go off to Mexico school to set we were going down there and after, and then he asked us to go to somebody, and he didn't take the time to fix all the cracks in the cement of the cooker. Because you have to take maple syrup, it takes about 30 gallons to cook it down. It seems like you take gallons and gallons, but I know it does, but I don't know the exact portion. But you cook it forever, and then you get this little okay, following me. So he's out there, he's cooking it, and I get home from work, and his parents have come to visit. Now that being said, he's not even been married maybe about a year now. So talk about the next year coming in your life. His parents have come to visit, and I come up and I pull up and I go in the house, and then I go out, and then it hits me. It's black. Everything back there is black. It's black. And his dad comes in, he's like, "Did Jim call you?" No. Is everything okay? It's like, did Jim tell you he lived the whole life? Like, no. She laughed when I was at work. He didn't call and tell me that. He's like, yeah, you pulled in, and which is natural resources in Wisconsin, they're there. They've got the big blade. They're just cranking through. Jim's out there slinging with the shovel. Bob's hitting you with the shovel. There's sirens and lights everywhere. And then I'm like, well, is everybody okay? That's the part of it. But let me tell you, they were okay. It was, it was done. It's already done. We paid for that too. But anyway, it's done. But that spring, let me tell you, that was the greenest spring because we didn't do anything. It was like, this could be. It was good. And then comes that still small voice. Now Elijah breaks down at this point. Have any of you ever been at that point where you all of a sudden you can't handle anything more, and that one little voice is what you hear? Just that one little tiny voice is what you hear. Elijah breaks down. He covers his face. He hides it. If it was me, I can't say what Elijah was doing, but the visualization of the story, I can see him crying. That's what I see. That's what I would be doing. He's crying. And Elijah, he goes out where he can hear a little Lord, a little easier. And then the Lord speaks again. He says, so what are you doing here? Why are you here, Elijah? What are you doing? In our own lives, we're so many times, I think we are looking for the Lord to come down like the wind. Just barely, it's going to take care of things. I think that sometimes that's what we expect of the Lord. Or maybe it's that mountain. Come down, cover everything up, knock it all flat. So we can start again. Maybe it's the earthquake. Maybe we're waiting for the Lord to come in and just shake everything up. So it's ongoing. Or maybe we just need the fire to come in and clear everything out. So there's nothing left. But most times the part we really, really need is that small voice. Now, in our lives today, I think there's a few things that have to do with this. Number one, if you don't know the Lord, I don't think you're going to hear his voice. If you don't know the Lord as your personal Savior, he has not died for you personally on the cross, and you've accepted that, I don't think you're going to hear his voice. And if you have not done that, I strongly encourage you to find someone, and I know there's a lot of ladies here today, or I know there's a couple of pastors in the back as well, to sit there and tell you what you need and help you find the Lord so you can hear that small voice. But the other thing, God sends his small voice in many, many ways in our life. He sends it in a Bible verse. He sends it in a song that crosses our mind that we haven't heard in a long time. He sends that friend who just calls because you're feeling down. That Christian friend who can pick you up. That person who says, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? Or I'm just next door, do you want to come along? You know, I've had a lot of great conversations with friends on the drive. I mean, we have 45 minutes before we get here. You know, we can have great conversations. So, this is my question. What are you doing? God asked it of Elijah, but I think he asks it of each and every one of us. What are you doing? Are you listening for that small voice? It says, are you turning away from the things that take you away from the Lord and hunting the things that bring you closer? Are you running? Is the fear of what you think God might ask you to do sending you like on that 41-mile hike in the middle of the night? You don't know what God's asking, but what you think he might be is sending you running. So are you listening for that little small voice? I'm just going to leave you with one more thought. So James, in the book of James, which is in the New Testament, verse 4:17, it says, therefore to him who knows to do good and does it not, to him it is sin. Are you listening for that voice, and why are you here? And that was something I was just thinking about when I was getting ready for the conference. Why are you here? Why do we get together? Why do we do all the things we do? Do we do it for us? Do we do it for the Lord? Why are you here? So at this time, I am going to take a break. I do not always do it on Friday nights, but Jim and I were discussing it, and he said, Becky, what is something you would want the offering to go to? What is something